Hello everyone. Decided to throw in a little surprise video here, but this is going to be on Spider-Man on film thus far, from his initial debut in Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man from 2002 up to Spider-Man No Way Home, Far From Home, and then probably a little speculation round on No Way Home at the end. And while I discuss Tom Holland, I'm going to show these bad boys off, because these are many of the costumes that he's worn in the movies thus far. And he is going to wear the Iron Spider suit with the tentacles, again in No Way Home, to fight Doc Ock. And I did get these two new ones from No Way Home as well. So anyway, without further ado, Spider-Man on film. Anyway, to start things off, the first Spider-Man movie had an interesting development period. Canon, the studio that made those cheap, schlock movies in the 1980s, like Masters of the Universe was initially going to do it, had a lot of scripts, even made a comic book that had a stuntman dressed up as Spider-Man who was going to play Spider-Man. But yeah, that didn't pan out. And then James Cameron almost made the movie, but he wanted to make it all edgy and R-rated. I don't like what he wanted to do. The only thing that carried into the actual film was the organic web shooters. And that was about it. But yeah, anyway, also glad he didn't cast Leonardo DiCaprio. I don't know why, but I just can't see him as Spider-Man. Great actor, just don't see him as Spider-Man. Same thing with Tom Cruise as Tony Stark. I'm glad that didn't happen, because I don't see him as Tony Stark either. But anyway, yeah. Oh, Arnold Schwarzenegger almost played Dr. Octopus. Yeah, I don't see that working either, so... And he wanted to do some things quite different from Spider-Man in the comics, and I don't think it would have boded well in the 90s especially, so I'm kind of glad we dodged that bullet. Anyway, that led to Sony buying the Spider-Man rights in 1999, and they've had it ever since. They almost could have bought all of Marvel's rights, but thank God they didn't. But yeah, and I'm just glad we're getting this current movie, No Way Home, because after Far From Home's release, it looked like Sony was taking Spider-Man back, but thank God the negotiations went back on, and Sony came to their senses that they're committing financial suicide if they were to go forward with this. So to keep this short, I guess I'll discuss a little bit of the time period when each Spider-Man movie was released, my thoughts, and then at the end of it, my feelings on the actor who played Spider-Man, and then it'll all finish off with No Way Home, so I don't drag out the length in this video, because I would like to keep it at a relatively easy length. So, without further ado, we're on to Tobey Maguire Spider-Man in Spider-Man 2002. Anyway, so yeah, this movie, finally, after a long development period, got directed by the Evil Dead director Sam Raimi, and starred Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane Watson, J.K. Simmons in his legendary portrayal of J. Jonah Jameson. I don't think I need to say much more than he nailed the character, and that's why he's never been recast. And Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin, who will be back for Spider-Man No Way Home. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, this movie came out a year after 9/11, so they went in to add in some more scenes of American iconography, like the American flag at the end of the movie, and the scene where New York came to the aid of Spider-Man to defeat the Green Goblin, so I can kind of see why some people got emotional at the end of seeing this movie. So I saw it with my parents and my grandma when it came out back in 2002. And overall, pretty solid film. Gotta admit, the only thing that kind of holds it back for me are some of the visual effects. They look a little dated, and some of them real rubbery, almost like an old video game cutscene. But overall, the story's real great. It has a real great balance of tone, showing the dramatic character building, along with the goofier sides of the Spider-Man comics, because Sam Raimi really did his homework with this movie. And some of them definitely come through, like when the Green Goblin is all like, "We'll meet again, Spider-Man!" Or when he goes after J. Jonah Jameson, because you could tell Willem Dafoe loved playing Green Goblin, and probably why he wanted to come back. But yeah, also the scene where Aunt May is praying, and he's all like, "Finish it! Finish it!" Okay, there is my best Willem Dafoe Green Goblin. I've never attempted that impersonation till now, but oh gosh. Anyway, real solid film, and boy, the final fight Spider-Man has with Green Goblin is real great. Especially how the climax of the movie pays tribute to the night Gwen Stacy died at the end, but Mary Jane is in Gwen Stacy's place. But Spider-Man this time saves everybody. But yeah, overall, pretty solid film, and the final swinging scene from this movie is really great, and that's where I think a good chunk of the visual effects budget went in. And I'm glad that Sam Raimi did practical effects as much as visual, even though you can tell some of these are digital, because some of the stunts, you really could not have a stuntman or actor or anyone do them, so I guess that's just the nature of the beast. And I guess because the safety for the stunts and whatnot has gotten more safe, from what I know, Tom Holland is doing a lot of his own stunts, which we'll get to that when I get to Tom Holland. But I'll say this right now, Maguire, I've kind of had my opinions change a bit, but overall I still enjoy him. I feel he's a better Peter Parker than he is Spider-Man, though. But overall, still pretty good, but I don't think he's the god-tier portrayal of a character like what some of the fans say he is. But I still enjoy him, but he's second to Holland for me. So I guess without further ado, let's go to Spider-Man 2, and then I'll briefly go over 3, and then we'll really briefly go over The Amazing Spider-Man. So yeah, Spider-Man 2, this movie definitely took everything that was pretty awesome about the first movie, made it even better. Doc Ock, amazing villain, very sympathetic, and you really get where he's coming from. And really like how he was established and how he's not like comic book Doc Ock with just being evil for the sake of being evil, or evil just because he feels the world wronged him. There's a little more to his motivations. So yeah, with Spider-Man already established, it continues Peter Parker's character arc and how he feels like being Spider-Man is ruining his personal life and he wants to give it up, which is a real great plot point that is prominent throughout the whole film. If anything, this movie is more Peter Parker's movie than it is Spider-Man's movie. Now, I'll admit, I feel in some ways this movie is really overpraised. I mean, I feel the superhero genre has come a long way since this movie, with movies like Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, The Dark Knight, Logan, and Shang-Chi. So yeah, same thing with that train fight scene. Some call it still the best superhero fight scene. I mean, it's good, but I feel like the Russo brothers with Captain America the Winter Soldier, another superhero movie that raised the bar, along with Civil War. Basically, anything they directed was pretty fucking awesome, and the action was always amazing in them, especially with the last two Avengers movies. But, yeah, overall, definitely still a pretty solid film, though, and definitely like Stan Lee's cameos in all these movies. First one, he's a guy who saves a girl from falling debris from the Green Goblin. Same thing with this movie. He saves someone from falling debris in the building battle with Doc Ock. But yeah, Alfred Molina was really great. He still cracked a one-liner every once in a while, too, which was real nice, like when he drops Aunt May, and he's all like, Butterfingers! And he'll be back for Spider-Man No Way Home also, so can't wait to see that. But, yeah, guess I don't have much to say in short other than that, so, other than that, Spider-Man 2 is a real solid film. And I don't have much to say about Spider-Man 3 other than my feelings have been a huge roller coaster. I really loved it as a kid, but as I've grown older, it's kind of declined. I don't think it's the disaster people are making it out to be. There's much worse superhero movies out there, like the Fantastic Four movies, and I mean all of them. Even that really shitty Roger Corman movie. But, yeah. Overall, though, it's, It's definitely a letdown. It still closes off some pretty good plot threads, though, and I like Peter teaming up with Harry, because that was a plot thread from Spider-Man 2, which I feel really should have just been the villain himself. Credit to Chris Stuckman for saying that in his rewrite of Spider-Man 3. And Venom, he should not have been in this movie, and Topher Grace was miscast, and I feel like they threw Venom in way too soon. And Sandman, while good, I don't know. I don't really feel like he needed to come back for Spider-Man No Way Home. I hope I'm proven wrong, but I don't know. I don't see why he's coming back. But I guess if it's to be the Sinister Six, that might be why. Anyway, let's very briefly discuss the Amazing Spider-Man movies and then move on to the MCU. I think I'm going to try my best to speed round through those, though, because there's a lot of movies to cover there. And I got a lot to say about Tom Holland, as you can see. So, here's some from Spider-Man 2 and 3 and The Amazing Spider-Man. So anyway, to real briefly sum up my incredibly brief thoughts on the Amazing Spider-Man movies. This was a reboot way too soon. Really should have just gone with Spider-Man 4. And don't at me, but I don't get this sudden resurgence in popularity for Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man and Peter Parker. I really don't get it, and I feel he's miscast. I feel I was way more forgiving around the time the movies have come out, but he just isn't a good fit, and that goes for him being Spider-Man too. I know he tried to be a little more smart-ass-like, but I feel like he kind of did it to the point where he kind of came across as a dick. And also, he definitely didn't have the Peter Parker look, and he wasn't a convincing nerd at all. And I gotta say, the only reasons why I may ever rewatch these movies is because of his chemistry with Gwen Stacy, Emma Stone, who may appear in Spider-Man No Way Home, I'm not sure. Maguire and Garfield are more than likely going to be in it, and I'm going to say that right now. I'll admit I could be wrong, but there's a lot of pretty good evidence to support it. And the Lizard, the villain from this movie, is going to be in it. But I'm honestly hoping they redesign him and that this is going to be a variant, because I really don't like how it's just Kurt Connor's face. The Lizard is supposed to have a snout and look like an actual lizard. So yeah, and hopefully he's redeveloped also, because he was very underwritten in this film. And the comic book version is a trillion times better of Kurt Connor's. So yeah, I hope he's done better in this movie, Spider-Man No Way Home. And up next is Electro, the villain from The Amazing Spider-Man 2, even though there were three of them. Him, Harry Osborn, Green Goblin, and Rhino, even though Rhino was more or less a glorified goon. So, yeah. But Electro's going to be in this movie, but he looks completely different. Still played by the same actor, Jamie Foxx, but is having a new costume and looks quite different, which makes me think he's more than likely a variant. So, as Loki established, a variant being a character that went down a different path in the stream of time. So I feel like he's going to be a variant more than likely. But yeah, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, oh my gosh, all I gotta say, that is the Batman and Robin of Spider-Man movies. Spider-Man 3 still had some redeeming scenes, even though there was the cringeworthy dance scene. And, oh god, that other jazz club scene, god, that was just cringe. But, my god, this movie had way too much to stuff into one movie. So many subplots that went all over the place. And, even Andrew Garfield seemed like he was kind of not giving it his all. But, yeah. And they definitely rushed Gwen Stacy's death. She should not have been killed off in this movie. That should have been waited for the third movie. And the marketing did kind of give it away, too. This movie was poorly marketed also. And this movie really did kind of just focus on the Sinister Six and isn't doing what the MCU did, which hinted at it backdoor with a post-credit scene. So, anyway, I guess that's all I gotta say on the Amazing Spider-Man movies. So let's move on to the MCU and my favorite Spider-Man / Peter Parker, Tom Holland. So here's a few images from Amazing Spider-Man and a little snippet of some for Tom Holland. I'm probably going to share more as we go along. So anyway, Spider-Man debuted wearing this costume and a onesie that kind of resembled Ben Reilly from the comics. But anyway, that was in Captain America Civil War, where he made an extended cameo. And it introduced him, showed how he'd been in the background the whole time in the MCU. And Tony Stark recruits him to join his side in the Civil War. And, oh gosh, Tom Holland just nails it all. He's a great Peter Parker, a great Spider-Man. He has the geeky, nerd side of Peter Parker down to a science. And he has Spider-Man's snarky, smart-ass, kind of just youthful energy down to a T also. Like, I was giddy watching him in this movie. Every scene, every line of dialogue. Oh gosh, this was a fun movie to see in the theaters, and I'm glad I got to see it twice. But yeah, to say a few of my highlights, definitely I like the scene where he kind of rewords with great power comes great responsibility. Forgot to highlight that. Love that scene. Didn't like the way they danced around it, though, in The Amazing Spider-Man. It was so weird how Uncle Ben was like, if you have the skill to do good things, then you have an obligation to do those things. That's what's at stake here. Not choice, responsibility. Just fucking weird. Anyway, this is a much better way of getting it across. When Stark asks him, so, what gets you out of that bed every morning? He's like, well, you don't help people out, and the bad things happen, even though you could help out and prevent them from happening. So yeah. And another version of this appears in the next movie, Spider-Man Homecoming, but we'll discuss that when we get to Homecoming. But yeah, just to highlight a few scenes, I love his debut is great when he steals Captain America's shield, and he's all like, hey everyone! Oh, and his fight with Falcon and Bucky was great too, especially when he throws the thing at Bucky, the debris, and he's all like, hey buddy, I think you lost this. And it's also funny too when Bucky tries to punch him with his metal arm and he grabs his arm, he's all like, you have a metal arm? That is awesome, dude. He just had so many great one-liners. And when he said, holy shit, when Ant-Man became Giant Man, and the Star Wars reference he made when he's like, you seen that really old movie, The Empire Strikes Back, with the walkie thingy? And he actually came up with the idea to web his legs and get him to trip, just like an AT-AT Walker in Star Wars. So oh god, it was just so great. And the post-credit scene was great too, when he has his little spider signal, and he's trying to hide he's Spider-Man to Aunt May, even though we'll see how that pans out in the next movie. So yeah, overall, this was a great fucking debut. I loved every minute he was on screen. And now let's discuss his first solo movie, Spider-Man Homecoming. So I decided we're going to review the solo movie as a whole, and then after the solo movie as a whole, we're going to go into his Avengers appearances relatively briefly, because he's not in the movie all that much. I'm just going to highlight the moments I really liked of his, and then we're going to get into Far From Home, and then my speculation, and then that'll be it. Anyway, in this movie, he battles the Vulture. Yep, this is my Vulture action figure. I wish the helmet came off, because I love Michael Keaton. He's my favorite Batman. But yeah, I like how with this one, you can take this off. Much like in the movie, how his wings weren't attached to him, and how he could just summon them to him and use the wings as a projectile. But yeah, I like how Spider-Man was introduced as being a part of the MCU, how they incorporated the Chitauri weapons from Homecoming, and how Vulture was a surprisingly great villain. They went the Doc Ock route with him, made him really sympathetic, and I kind of liked how he was a blue-collar worker and how he felt he was screwed over by Tony Stark and the rich and the powerful from the country. And his motivations, I was like, good God, I mean, I want Spider-Man to bring you down. What you're doing is still wrong, but you're a pretty solid villain. And I'm glad he also could come back, too. He just got arrested. I'm glad that happened, too. But, yeah, anyway, really liked his fight scenes with him, and, the scene in the Washington Monument where Spider-Man has to save his friends from the Chitauri core that exploded. And, also it was nice to have Spider-Man talk to Karen, be like his way of expressing his internal thoughts, so that wouldn't just look weird of him talking to himself, he was actually talking to someone. I also liked how his eyes in this movie are actually expressive. That's what I love about the MCU in general. They just added the expressive eyes Spider-Man has. And this movie definitely showed a great balance of showing Peter Parker balancing being Peter Parker and Spider-Man and all the conflicts that come with that. And I definitely like the homecoming aspect of the plot. Ned Leeds was a real great supporting character, along with Zendaya as Michelle, or MJ as she's called. And Shocker's also in this movie, but he's more or less a glorified goon. I did like the little sleeve he wore that looked like comic book Shocker, though. And yeah, Mike Keaton was a real great villain, and I liked some moments too where Spider-Man shows that he's willing to do whatever it takes to win. When Vulture's goons are about to shoot him, and he's all like, "Hey, you want to shoot somebody? Shoot me!" And also, I like the ferry scene was real great too, and the way Tony Stark / Iron Man was incorporated into this movie was really awesome. Also, he basically was just an extended cameo. He didn't take over the movie like what the marketing portrayed it to be. And the last things I want to highlight is when he says to Spider-Man his equivalent of "with great power comes great responsibility." And I'm going to say this right now, Uncle Ben is in the MCU. Tony Stark is not a substitute for Uncle Ben. He is there, he's going to be referenced and brought in, so quit saying that bullshit. Anyway, I like it when he says, "If you're nothing without this suit, then you shouldn't have it." And I like how that comes into play when Vulture pins Spider-Man down on an air conditioning unit, and he remembers that line, and he's like, "Come on, Peter, come on, Spider-Man." And it's kind of the moment where Tom Holland solidified himself as Spider-Man, because he didn't want to just sit there and let emergency workers get him. He wanted to bring down Vulture, which he did, and led to some many great scenes. And the final scene where Aunt May finally learns he's Spider-Man, because that's one thing from the comics I don't really like, how Aunt May never figures out Peter Parker is Spider-Man. It's kind of stupid, so I'm kind of glad they did away with that. I'm glad she's not pigeonholed into not knowing he's Spider-Man. And it's also funny too how she's all like, "What the fuck?" And then she gets censored by the credits. And oh, Vulture, we see him in prison in this one too. Also, Matt Gargan appears in the scene, who could be Scorpion in a future movie, since Tom Holland got his contract extended for 3 more movies. So yeah, overall, Spider-Man Homecoming was a great intro. I love this movie. It was really great, and loved just about every aspect of it. I wouldn't really change anything. Comedy was great, the action, Tony Stark was used greatly too, along with Happy Hogan, and really brought in Spider-Man real greatly to the MCU. So, anyway, I guess the last scene I want to highlight, without saying too much for those who haven't seen it, the scene where Spider-Man finds out who his date's dad is, without saying anything else, let's just say is a really great cinematic scene. So anyway, on to his Avengers appearances. So anyway, up next, he wears this costume finally, the Iron Spider, that was teased in Homecoming at the end. Starts off with this one, then goes to Iron Spider. So anyway, he basically gets brought along with Stark, because what the Russo brothers did real greatly with this movie was they separated all the characters into specific groups. There's the Avengers that are in Wakanda, those that are in space, and then Thor and the Guardians are also in space doing their own thing, which I really liked and was a real great way of giving everyone in the ensemble cast their own time to shine. And Peter gets his time to shine. I like it when he fights the Dark Order. And also when, I think it was Call Obsidian, he like throws like a car or something at Stark, and I just love it when he grabs it and he's all like, "Oh hey Mr. Stark, you need my help?" Just a total Spider-Man line. And also love his pop culture references too, when he references Alien, how that's what he used to kill Ebony Maw, sending him out into space. Oh, and funny too when he looks at Mantis and thinks Mantis is the alien queen, he's all like, "You're gonna put your eggs in me, get away from me." Oh, I love that scene. And yeah, Spider-Man just had all of his great one-liners, along with Doctor Strange, when he's all like, "Hey, I'm Peter, by the way, Doctor Strange." He's like, "Oh, we're using up our made-up names. Then I am Spider-Man." And his fight scene with Thanos was real great too, when he kept fighting him as Strange was using the portals, and he's all like, "Magic with a kick." And also, I like how when Thanos grabs him and slams him on the ground, he's like, "Insect!" And I also noticed too, Spider-Man got the gauntlet off Thanos in the scene where they almost got it up until Star-Lord fucked it all up. But he got it off. That was a little detail people don't discuss enough. He got it off. I rewatched it. I saw with my own 2 eyes. I'm like, oh shit, he got it off. If things went out differently, he could have been the hero of the whole fucking movie. But yeah, I guess the last thing to discuss in Infinity War is what Tony Stark said about if he died, how that would affect his conscience happened when Thanos performed the snap. Spider-Man got dusted and led to the real sad scene where he's all like, I don't want to go, Mr. Stark, please, I don't want to go. And then he's all like, I'm sorry, and then fades to dust. And because of his super strength and his spider sense, he knew it was coming, and he was like trying to hold it back. And then fades to dust right in Stark's arms. So yeah. Anyway, that's it for Infinity War, so let's move on to his appearance in Endgame and then get Far From Home and No Way Home out of the way, and that is it. So on to his appearance in Avengers Endgame. Yeah. Let's just say he doesn't appear until much later in the film, but when he does, he has a lot of badass moments and some payoffs to some things that were set up. Like in Homecoming, when Stark was grabbing the door, he said, that's not a hug, I'm just grabbing the door, we're not there yet. The first thing that Stark says when he comes back to Earth, he's like, I lost the kid. And he will never know it. But Peter Parker Spider-Man is the whole reason why Tony Stark went on the time heist, which was what helped bring down Thanos and undo the damage he caused, even though in the process it led to the deaths of Black Widow and Natasha Romanoff, Black Widow, and Tony Stark, Iron Man, and also, more than likely, Steve Rogers, Captain America. But anyway, he still had many amazing moments, especially when he was swinging off Giant Man's arm. Oh, and also when he got to activate Instant Kill, when all of Thanos' army were about to attack him, and he was all like, Karen, activate to Instant Kill, and then all the tentacles on his suit just started thrashing just about all of them around him, and it was a real badass moment. And there's also the other real badass moment where Captain America, after being deemed worthy of wielding Mjolnir, launches it, and Spider-Man is literally swinging off Mjolnir. Now, I never would have thought something like that would ever happen in a superhero movie, but needless to say, Endgame proved my ass, dead ass, wrong. So, yeah. And then it also led to the real sad moment and scene where, after he gets some help giving the gauntlet to Captain Marvel to take down Thanos, Stark does his sacrifice, and Peter is there, and he's like, we won, Mr. Stark. We won. And he watches him as he dies and goes to his funeral, and this is definitely something that's going to be a part of his development moving forward in the MCU. It was a big part of Far From Home, going to probably be a decently sized part of No Way Home, and it'll probably still be referenced in his subsequent appearances. Anyway, overall another great appearance for him in Avengers Endgame, and definitely led into Far From Home real greatly, which was the epilogue to the Infinity Saga. Definitely a nice close to it, so let's go ahead and get ready to discuss his final solo film thus far in the MCU, Spider-Man Far From Home. So yeah, in this movie, he also wears a combination of almost all his costumes, but he's only really fighting in action in about one of them. But yeah, there's Iron Spider, which he wears at the beginning, and in a deleted scene, and the traditional suit. But he also wears a black suit that kind of resembles this one from the upcoming No Way Home, except it kind of has more pouches and stuff and resembles the Spider-Man Noir costume just a little more. And this was the final suit he made to differentiate himself as Spider-Man. Because one of the dumbest criticisms of all of MCU Spider-Man is that he's Iron Man Jr. or Iron Boy Jr. Which is not true, and the scene I highlighted from Homecoming and many scenes in this movie prove that he's not Iron Man, especially when Happy says to him, you're not Iron Man, you'll never be Iron Man. He always second-guessed everything he did, but the one thing he didn't second-guess was choosing you. And let's just say this leads to a really great villain who I did not think was going to do as well in a live-action film. But Jake Gyllenhaal, as you can tell by my shirt and this action figure I got, he blew it out of the fucking water. I mean, I knew he was going to be good, but I didn't know he was going to be this good. Like, he was real menacing and kind of a little intimidating with his psyche. Like, he tried to be a calm, cool, like, mentor-type figure to Peter at the beginning of the film because he portrayed himself as a hero. Even came up with a fake backstory. I'm also glad they incorporated the filmmaking aspect of comic book Mysterio, even though they did change it in their own ways. But he was supposed to be as a mentor, and let's just say it leads to some real great misleads and betrayals, and Jake Gyllenhaal just killed it. So anyway, here's an image of Mysterio before I get into this movie a little more. But yeah, Nick Fury is his leader-like role, because this movie does reference who passed away in Avengers Endgame with the I Will Always Love You tribute in the beginning of the movie. And, yeah. Anyway, also the Elementals are these villains that Mysterio ends up creating to deal with Spider-Man that resemble Hydro Man, Sandman, and there's also one that combines them all together, but they're all bullshit. It's all illusions. And there's also this real great scene where Peter faces his worst fears, where he messes with him on letting down Tony Stark, and oh yeah, it is the scene where he wears this costume also, but that was just an illusion. But yeah, he really messes with him, and you think the movie is over when there's a shot where it looks like Quentin Beck got shot, but he's impersonating Nick Fury, and he's all like, "You are so gullible," and he gives out his friend's information, and he feels like shit, and it's just a real great moment, which then leads to the Happy Hogan scene I said, but yeah. And so many images were taken directly from the comics, like Spider-Man being in Mysterio's helmet, and even a reference to Iron Man and Black Widow that I didn't know about, and yeah, it's just, overall, wow, just about everything came together in this film real greatly. They still maintained the comedy that was real great from the previous movie, and Michelle, MJ, played by Zendaya, gets a lot more development in this movie, and their relationship, I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of cute, and I honestly hope it doesn't end, but it's still been real sweet, and I can't wait to see how it's going to develop in No Way Home. And the final battle with him and Mysterio in London, holy shit! That was what I wanted to see in a Spider-Man movie in a long time. Him using all of his abilities, him even incorporating aspects of Thor and Captain America when he used some little building debris to make like a mace and a shield. And there's even a scene where he tries to shoot his webs, but he's like, dang it, I don't have any more webs. So he has to think with his head. A real great aspect of many Spider-Man comics when he has no webs. So, really like that aspect too. And Jake Gyllenhaal, oh, he's just killing it in the scene too, especially when he wants Spider-Man dead and all of his drones, his little AI saying, "Boss, you're in the strike zone." He's all like, "What? Fire all the drones now!" That was definitely equivalent to the really great Dafoe moments in those movies. But yeah, between the two villains, I don't know why some say Vulture was better. I think Mysterio is significantly better. He's like the right balance of fucking crazy, sympathetic, yet also kind of scummy, because he just wants to murder people to be the new Iron Man, like the Iron Man like god figure. Like, he wants to replace him and be in his place. Because it's revealed he's a former Stark employee, and once he found out that Spider-Man was gonna succeed him and whatnot and all that, even though I feel like this is more the Batman Beyond approach, where Spider-Man, yes, he's honoring Tony Stark's legacy, but he's also his own hero. Very similar to Terry McGinnis compared to Bruce Wayne in Batman Beyond. But this ain't a Batman Beyond discussion, but that's what I think, at least. And I'm glad Marvel is taking that route with these successor characters. Anyway, he's kind of scummy. He, like, just wants all this attention to kill people just to be seen as a fucking hero? Like, God, he has some serious issues. And I kind of like the message how this movie, like, is a subtle commentary on misinformation and how it's become way too prevalent in today's society and culture. Because, wow. I watching it more and more, I'm like, holy shit, this is kind of applicable to today's world. But, yeah, anyway, overall, though, real solid film, and definitely like the ending swinging scene that resembles the ending swinging scenes from Spider-Man 1 and 2. And the first mid-credit scene was real great, where J.K. Simmons makes a comeback and reveals, due to Mysterio revealing Spider-Man's identity, says, Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And he's seen as a hero, as Spider-Man is now tainted as a villain, with his identity out. And I hope No Way Home does not retcon this like the comics have done with comics like One More Day. I really hope this development sticks. But yeah, a real great way to lead into No Way Home. So yeah, this might just be my overall favorite Spider-Man movie. It's a 9 out of 10. I can't really think of that many issues with it. I really love this movie. It was just what I needed after Avengers Endgame. And yeah, this movie was just fucking amazing. Anyway, and had all the Spider-Man action I've been wanting for years on screen in live action. So, without further ado, let's go to the speculation round for No Way Home, and that is all. So yeah, Spider-Man No Way Home. He'll be wearing a combination of this costume, this one, and this one. And it's going to have all the returning villains I previously named, though I do have a theory on who the 6th member of the Sinister Six will be, because the Sinister Six is supposed to be 6, not 5. Anyway, Willem Dafoe Green Goblin, Alfred Molina Doc Ock, Electro from The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Lizard, and Sandman from Spider-Man 3. Anyway, all pretty good choices. I kind of like how they're still maintaining Doc Ock's development and how he doesn't know that this is a different Peter Parker, so I'm still hoping that he's still going to be a hero and his redemption arc isn't going to be nullified. And even if he's going to be a villain, he may just be doing it just to get the upper hand on the rest of the Sinister Six. Or who knows, maybe his morality will change. One part of the film he'll be a hero, the other part he'll be a villain, but hopefully in the end he will be a hero. Got a feeling Sandman may be the same way too, because he had a bit of a redemption arc in Spider-Man 3. Unless this is a variant of him, which I think is going to happen with Electro. And this Green Goblin may or may not be one, I'm not sure, because he is wearing a slightly different costume. Which it is kind of nice to actually see Willem Dafoe's face, because his face does kind of look like a goblin. But yeah, I really like how it's going to carry over the Peter Parker having his identity revealed, bringing in aspects of the Spider-Verse of the comics, which I really like, which I think will bring in Maguire and Garfield. And I feel like if they do appear, it's not going to be till the third act. This is Tom Holland's movie, after all. But yeah. And I like his team up with this guy that's going to be in the movie, Doctor Strange. And I kind of like how he's not really going to be a mentor figure. He's kind of there just to help him and help him with the multiverse stuff. But yeah, this movie, I can't wait to see it. I'm seeing it opening day, and I got a feeling this is going to be a special Spider-Man movie. It's going to be about 2.5 hours long. John Watts, the director, literally called it Spider-Man Endgame, so that's also why I'm thinking all these things are going to happen. And I sure hope the rumor is true that Charlie Cox is going to appear in this movie, bare minimum, as Matt Murdock to be Peter's lawyer. Now, that would be fucking incredible. Because then it could lead to a future film appearance with Tom Holland where Daredevil is an ally to Spider-Man. Shoot, I wouldn't mind if Daredevil appears. Bring in Daredevil. I wouldn't mind seeing Daredevil fight him. Now, I'll address the elephant in the room. I know Tom Hardy Venom, the most recent movie, had that post-mid-credit scene that connected him to the MCU, but I'm not buying it. I think Venom is only connected by the multiverse. He's not directly a part of the MCU. And I feel the only way to make Venom work in this universe is if Tom Hardy is a variant. Like, we can't just plop in the Venom from that movie that was just made, throw him into this MCU Spider-Man, and that's it. Because Spider-Man and Eddie Brock are supposed to have a rivalry, and he's supposed to hate him. I'm not gonna buy it. Like, it's bullshit. It's not gonna work. They didn't set it up properly, so he needs to be a variant. So I'm hoping that's the route they go. And they're making this Venom an anti-hero. So I got a feeling at best he'll be a mid or post-credit scene. And I don't think he'll join the Sinister Six. This Venom is not the villain Venom that appeared when Venom initially debuted. So I guess all I got left to say on that is for the 6th member of the Sinister Six, my money is either going to be the most likely candidate, Mysterio, because the scene in the movie, Far From Home, the camera cuts away from him when he gets shot. Like, it's just quick. Like, you don't see it. Like, he's there and then gone. So I kind of got a feeling he's not dead, and he still used an illusion to fool Peter, and I'm honestly hoping maybe he comes in and he says something along the lines of, well, this was my plan all along, Peter, to bring in the multiverse and bring you down. You brought me down, now I'm gonna bring you down. God, that would be so fucking perfect if that happens. I also wouldn't mind if Vulture joined the Sinister Six, since Vulture has been a member of the Sinister Six, but it may mess up some of his development, but I wouldn't mind that. Or if they bring in Scorpion. Because it's kind of going to be weird that Holland is only fighting villains from prior iterations of Spider-Man. So I'm kind of hoping Tom Holland has at least one of his own villains to fight in his movie. So yeah, I think they're just hiding the reveal. So anyway, Scorpion could also appear, so there is that too. But yeah, I honestly hope that's what's going to happen. So there will be a 6th member of the Sinister Six. And would like some moments where Peter Parker, or at least this current MCU one, interacts with the other 2 ones and kind of learns what it is to be Spider-Man and whatnot. So yeah, but I like the direction this movie's going, and my expectations are moderate. I'm not going to let this be a WandaVision like what WandaVision was to many of the fans. So anyway, I can't wait to see Spider-Man No Way Home, and I hope you all enjoy it. Be expecting my spoiler-free review, because I'm going to see it opening day, and I might just get it up right after I see it. Who knows? We'll see. So anyway, thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and peace!